Hi, welcome to my channel. This is going to be my early review of the First Descendant. The game just came out a couple days ago. I've put in a bit over 40 hours into the game. Crafted a couple of the Descendants. Every time I say that, I always want to say crafted a new frame, because the game bears a lot of similarities to Warframe and reminds me a lot of Warframe. Now basically I'm just going to go over some of my thoughts on the game, some pros, some cons, and some things I think that anyone who wants to hop into this game should be aware of and might want to watch out for. Alright, let's just dive straight into it. The First Descendant is a looter shooter in the same vein as Destiny or Warframe. And I mean, if you've played a Titan in Destiny and you pick up Ajax as your first Descendant when you start this game, it's basically Ajax is a Titan. Like, that aside, let's get into the more controversial topics of games like this, and that's the monetization. At this point in time, if you're even a little bit curious and you've probably looked into the game, you've seen that one of the most popular Descendants, Bunny, has an ultimate phone that you can outright buy for $70. That's the price of a full AAA game for one character. This game has 5 ultimate Descendants that outright now that you can buy. And I know everyone's going to say you don't have to buy it, you can grind and eventually, craft that Descendant, but it still looks really bad to have one item in your game that costs as much as a full AAA game. I find that to be ridiculous. Other games have gone free to play and they did not have to basically gouge their player base to this extent to still be successful. I do understand a game like this being free to play, they have to make money through some other means. At this moment, that's selling skins, a battle pass, and a couple of trinkets, things that don't really affect major gameplay, and I'm fine with it. But if you're new to this basically freemium looter shooter genre, you want to be well aware of that. Anything you're going to spend money on tends to be on the expensive side of things. As long as you're aware of that, you're okay with it, then we can move on to things that I think the game actually does well. A couple of things the game does well. You have your matchmaking. Just about every activity has matchmaking assigned to it. I know at the moment hard modes does seem to have matchmaking. I haven't gotten there yet. Kind of taking my time, because once I'm through with like the main story and done with the early grind, I tend to basically win myself off of the games like this. That's kind of what happened with Warframe. Kind of what similar thing with Destiny. But so I try to enjoy those games and prolong that early, I guess, honeymoon phase of the game. But aside from hard mode, just about every other activity I have played in the game has matchmaking of some kind. I mean, someone can be in a mission and you're on the same map as them. You can just start shooting the enemies they are fighting against, and the game would instantly put you in that mission, so you end up getting the rewards at the end of the mission as well. And I really like that about the game. I think that's a feature that other games in the same vein might want to adapt. Another thing the game does well, in my opinion, the Colossus battles, like the intercept battles. Now, Warframe has something similar. They're called Idol and Hunts, really giant monsters in the open world that you can kind of face down, but it's difficult for newer players to know what to do, because there's not really a clear instructions on how you take down an eidolon. you're gonna have to go do your own research or go on YouTube and find a guide or something. Or if you're lucky, you have a veteran player currently taking down the same eidolon, and they kind of just carry you through the process, but you don't really learn what you need to do. In this game, for so far anyways, the intercept battles, there's a screen before you launch that specific activity that points out basically the weaknesses of each color associate you're about to take on, the resistances that you should put on your character. And I think that's excellent, because even if you're new, you can look at the screen. It's not a whole bunch of text, it's just a couple lines you just need to be aware of, and you know exactly what you need to do. And I think that's an excellent approach to this battle system. Then there's the loot. The loot system, it's a looter shooter. You get a lot of loot drops everywhere, and the game kind of lets you know that if you leave something on the ground, it will be sent to your post box. So far, I haven't found out to be the case. I have done some experiments where I leave like a whole bunch of blues on the ground and go back to the main hub, look at my post box, and there's nothing in there. And basically, it being a looter shooter, your inventory gets filled up really quickly. So I think the game needs to work on either having that fixed or better explaining what kind of loot actually gets sent to your post box. So far, I've noticed that only the loot from the end of a mission. So if your inventory is full and you complete a quest or mission, that loot you're supposed to get at the end, that gets sent to your post box. But anything else on the ground is lost forever. So make sure you clear out your inventories before running multiple missions, especially if you're not actively like grinding your mastery rank, which I think you should do early game, but just my opinion. The mastery rank system it's fairly simple to understand. Basically, level up things you haven't leveled up already, and that would rapidly increase your mastery rank. So all your weapons have certain proficiency levels to them. You just, anytime you find a new weapon, slot it in, and it's pretty quick to get the first 10 levels on every weapon. And so just do that, and by the time you've gone through a couple of the early missions, you would have a lot of weapons, and you get each and every one of them to level 10. Your mastery rank kind of flies up really quickly. Now the things that I would consider the weak point of the game. One of the major weak points is the writing. It's subpar. I mean, we'll really play games like this for excellent stories, but would at least expect some depth to the story. Don't make the obviously bad guy so bad that it's just ridiculous. One of the descendants that you're supposed to be working with ends up betraying you, and if you take 2 seconds to read his little character bio, the first time you interact with him, it tells you in there that he's going to betray. I just find that a little ridiculous, but I guess that's how the game chose to go about it. Alright, let's talk about like graphics, sound design, character animations. Basically, if you're a graphics snob, it's a good looking game. It's not the best looking game. If you've seen a game like Hellblade 2, yeah, that game looks great. It forgets to be a game, but it looks phenomenal. Obviously this isn't going to top that, but it's a great looking game if you have a rig that can run it at the highest settings with ray tracing on. it looks phenomenal. Character animations can be a bit clunky. Um, the roll animations, the grapple, the movement just doesn't feel as smooth as I think it should be. I mean, Warframe was able to achieve that, so but I think given time they will probably iron this out. Hopefully they don't abandon it like a lot of other looter shooters, Anthem, anyone. But if they stick to it and they can iron that out, that would be great. Sound design, that could use some help. Because sometimes it feels like the sound of your weapons is either too loud or too low. The same gun can have variations in how it sounds, which doesn't really make sense. But when it comes to the sound design, I'm not an audio expert. Usually, any game I play, I always go into the settings. If they have it, I turn up voice and turn down just about everything else, because I find those are not usually balanced in such a way that I can hear someone speaking if any of the other effects are going on in the background. So that's just me. I can't really give much more information on this topic than that, but you can tweak that a little bit and make it sound to your liking as best you can. Now for some more of the not so great things the game does. So the game comes with 15 descendants by default and 5 ultimate descendants, but you only have 10 slots, which means by default as the game is right now, you cannot research and craft all 15 descendants because you can't hold all 15 descendants. And from what I've seen and looked into and researched, there is no way to increase the amount of slots you have for your descendants except by paying for each new slot. And I don't think that's, I mean, every game does things differently, but I know Warframe, you got extra slots with every mastery rank, I believe, so you never actually had to buy those slots. You could just rank up and eventually craft every frame in the game and have no issues holding on to all frames. But this doesn't give you that leeway, and games like this, the main pleasure most people get from playing them is being able to craft every character and craft specific builds for each and every one of them. Basically try to get them as broken and busted and min maxed out as possible. They are deliberately infringing on your ability to do that, and I don't think that's the best approach to monetization in a game like this. If anyone of you are familiar with Warframe and the module system, you'll feel right at home here, because the way you make your guns more powerful and your descendants more powerful, besides just raising the level, which involves you grinding for research material, researching, and if you're familiar with Warframe, then you're used to the time gating of research where things just take hours and hours and you can pay to speed them up and all that. But mostly you're researching, you just put stuff to research and then you come back like a day later to continue to pick up from where you left off. But aside from that, you're very familiar with the module system, slotting in modules into your weapons, and if your weapon has like a type match, it halves the cost of that specific module. Basically, this has that exact system. So if you're familiar with that, you feel right at home. You already know what to do. You grind out modules, you can empower them, make them stronger, they cost more. You match everything right, you cut down the cost of slotting in new modules, and you min max your build that way. And it has a system that basically gives you flexibility. on setting, to a certain extent, on kind of builds you can make for each character. Not everybody likes a system. A system is not for everyone. Not everything is for everyone. But if you do like build crafting, this gives you the opportunity to create some pretty good builds. And yeah, that's basically it. My review for the First Descendant. It's a good game, good addition to the looter shooter genre. Has just about everything you need to make a decent looter shooter. Hopefully they stick with it long term and keep adding on to it and building on it to make it an even better game in the long run. It's got some good, some bad, but ultimately it's got everything that you need in a looter shooter. It's also free to play, so there's not really any harm in trying and giving the game a shot. See if you like it, if it's for you or not. But that's it. If you've gotten any value from this video, like, share, comment. But that's it. See you guys in the next one. Bye now.